A splash of Barolo. That's all it took to destroy Sabrina Fisher's carefully invisible life. At 23, drowning in $80,000 of student debt, she'd perfected the art of being furniture at the Cathedral, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant where politicians whispered secrets and criminals ate beside celebrities. But when expensive wine landed on the polished shoe of Salvo Romano, the city's most dangerous man, and he began insulting her in rapid Sicilian, the ancient dialect he assumed no American waitress could possibly understand, Sabrina made a choice. She could stay silent, stay invisible, stay safe. Or she could use the very language her missing mother had taught her while investigating the Sicilian Mafia, look Manhattan's most feared crime boss in the eye, and speak 5 words that would either get her killed or change everything. Signore, capisco ogni parola. Sir, I understand every word. Hi friends, if you're already obsessed with this story, hit subscribe and like this video so you don't miss what happens next. Bella's Stories brings you romance with bite, smart heroines, dangerous men, and moments that'll have you screaming at your screen. Subscribe now. You'll thank me later. Now back to Sabrina, who's about to do something incredibly brave, or incredibly stupid. It was 9 p.m. on a Thursday, and the Cathedral was operating at full capacity, which meant the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. The restaurant existed in that rarefied Manhattan space where there were no signs on the door, no prices on the menu, and no questions asked about the men in the corner booths who made eye contact with no one. Sabrina Fisher, 23 years old and $80,000 in debt, moved through this world like smoke. She was, by every academic measure, exceptional. A dual degree in international relations and Italian-American studies from a top university. Fluent in 4 languages, conversational in 2 more. Her senior thesis on the evolution of Sicilian organized crime had been called brilliant by professors who had no idea she'd written it while searching for answers about her own mother's disappearance. Dr. Maria Fisher had been an investigative journalist. Past tense. 5 years ago, she'd been working on an exposé about historical Sicilian-American Mafia ties when she'd simply vanished. No body, no evidence, no closure. Just an $80,000 debt from Sabrina's education and a cold case file the NYPD had long stopped pretending to investigate. So Sabrina had become a ghost. Working at the Cathedral wasn't just about paying bills, it was about access. These were the men who knew secrets. These were the tables where truth and lies exchanged hands, along with briefcases full of cash. Fisher. The voice belonged to Anthony Moretti, the restaurant's manager, a man whose permanent state of anxious terror made him sweat through expensive shirts. Corner booth, Romano party. They're here. Sabrina's blood went cold. Salvo Romano? You know another Romano who gets a 12-man security detail and makes the mayor nervous? Moretti's hands shook as he adjusted his tie. He's in the private section. You're his server tonight. Why me? Because Maria called in sick, and you're the only one who hasn't screwed up this week. He leaned closer, his breath smelling of coffee and panic. Listen carefully. You do not speak unless spoken to. You do not look at him. You do not exist. This man, he swallowed hard. This man ends careers. Understand? Understood, Sabrina said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. She grabbed the wine service, a 2015 Barolo that cost more than her monthly rent, and pushed through the heavy velvet curtain into the private dining section. The room fell silent when she entered, not because anyone noticed her, but because Salvo Romano's presence seemed to consume all available oxygen. He was younger than she'd expected, 33 maybe, with the kind of dark, severe features that belonged in Renaissance paintings of warrior princes. He wore a charcoal suit that fit like it had been sewn onto his body, and when his eyes swept the room with cold calculation, Sabrina understood why grown men feared him. This wasn't just power. This was violence wrapped in expensive fabric. He was deep in conversation with 2 men, one older, clearly a consigliere, one younger, probably an associate. They were speaking in low, intense Italian. Business, the kind that didn't appear in legal documents. Sabrina approached with practiced invisibility. She moved to pour the wine, her hands steady, her face blank. And then the carpet betrayed her. A loose thread, barely noticeable, completely lethal. Her foot caught. The bottle tilted. Time slowed to a crawl as deep red wine arced through the air like blood. It didn't hit the table. It didn't hit his food. It landed directly on Salvo Romano's immaculate leather shoe with a splash that sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. Everything stopped. The consigliere froze mid-sentence. The associate's eyes went wide. Every bodyguard in the room shifted position, hands moving toward concealed weapons. And Salvo Romano, slowly, with the mechanical precision of a predator deciding whether to strike, lifted his gaze from his ruined shoe to Sabrina's face. His eyes were black, empty, the kind of empty that came from seeing too much death and causing more. "Cazzo," he muttered. Then, without looking away from Sabrina, he switched to rapid Sicilian, the thick, ancient dialect of Palermo, not the cleaned-up Italian taught in universities. He spoke to his associate, but loud enough to carry. "Na picciotta stupida, goffa como un porco e vacanti como una testa di legno." A stupid girl, clumsy as a pig and empty as a wooden head. He continued, his voice dripping with contempt. "Cistu è un problema con l'America. Ni pigliano mancu a meglio. Tagliau, non sapi mancu camminare. Mi facissi ridere se non fossi tanto patetica." This is the problem with America. They hire even the worst. Look at her, she can't even walk. She'd make me laugh if she wasn't so pathetic. The associate laughed nervously. The consigliere looked uncomfortable. Moretti appeared at the door, his face the color of old milk. "Mr. Romano, I am so sorry," he began, already pulling a cloth from his pocket. But Sabrina didn't move. Something inside her, some combination of rage and grief and 5 years of swallowing silence, simply snapped. Her mother had taught her Sicilian. Not classroom Sicilian, but the real thing, the dialect of her grandmother's village, the language of old grudges and older secrets. Maria Fisher had learned it while investigating the Mafia's historical roots. She'd taught it to Sabrina during late-night research sessions, making her daughter memorize phrases and pronunciations until they were perfect. "Languages are weapons, Sabrina," her mother had said. "The most powerful people never expect you to understand them. That's when you learn the truth." Sabrina set down the wine bottle with deliberate care. She straightened, and when she spoke, her voice was calm, clear, and devastatingly precise. "Signori Romano," she said in flawless Palermitano Sicilian, "mi scusassi piscarpi, ma la mia testa vacanti capì che vossia stava parliando di cose che non sono legali. E sa chi? Né tanto abili a mucciare I tuoi affari come pinzati. Mr. Romano, forgive me for the shoes. But my empty head understood that you were speaking of things that aren't legal, and you know what? You're not as good at hiding your business as you think." The room didn't just go silent. It went dead. Salvo Romano's face drained of all color. His hand reaching for his wineglass froze in midair. His eyes, those cold, empty eyes, suddenly filled with something Sabrina had never seen in a man like him. Fear, pure, undiluted shock mixed with the realization that he'd just been exposed by a waitress he'd assumed was furniture. The consigliere's mouth fell open. The associate looked like he might faint. Moretti made a sound like a dying animal. And Sabrina stood there, her heart hammering, knowing she'd just committed either the bravest or stupidest act of her life. Possibly both. Salvo Romano rose slowly from his chair. He was tall, taller than she'd realized, and when he took a step toward her, every protective instinct screamed at her to run. But she held her ground. "Como?" His voice broke. He cleared his throat. Tried again. "Como sai parlare o me dialetto?" "How do you know how to speak my dialect?" Sabrina lifted her chin. Steady, defiant, possibly insane. "Pirci," she said quietly, "a me matri ma insignau. Prima che sparissi mentre investigava a tua famiglia." Because my mother taught me, before she disappeared while investigating your family." The words hung in the air like a thrown knife. And in that moment, Sabrina Fisher stopped being invisible. For better or worse, Salvo Romano would never forget her name. The business card in Sabrina's pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. She stood in the service corridor outside the private room, her back pressed against the cold wall, trying to remember how to breathe. Inside, she could hear muffled voices. Romano's security team doing a sweep, probably checking for listening devices, possibly discussing whether the waitress who'd just exposed herself as a threat needed to be handled. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was draining away, leaving behind pure, crystalline terror. What did I just do? "Fisher!" Moretti's voice was ice. He appeared at the end of the corridor, his face purple with rage. "My office! Now!" The walk felt like a death march. Other servers pressed themselves against the walls as they passed, eyes wide, already knowing. News traveled fast at the cathedral. The new girl had committed career suicide by insulting Salvo Romano to his face. They just didn't know she'd done it in his native dialect. Moretti's office was small, cramped, smelling of stale coffee and desperation. He didn't sit. Neither did she. "You're fired," he said flatly. "Effective immediately. Clean out your locker. I want you out of this building in 10 minutes. Mr. Moretti, do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice climbed toward hysteria. "Salvo Romano doesn't forgive embarrassment. He doesn't forget disrespect. Men who cross him, they disappear, Fisher. They have accidents. Their families have accidents. And you just insulted him in front of his people?" "He insulted me first," Sabrina said quietly. "He's a billionaire crime lord. You're a waitress. The insult doesn't go both ways." Moretti was pacing now, pulling at his tie. "I'm done. You're done. If Romano asks about you, I'm telling him you quit. I'm telling him you moved to California. I'm telling him whatever keeps this restaurant from getting burned down because some stupid girl with a death wish couldn't keep her mouth shut." Sabrina stood there, letting the words wash over her. She should feel devastated. This job had been her lifeline. Access to the underworld, money for her loans, a way to keep searching for answers about her mother. Instead, she felt strangely calm. "I need my final paycheck," she said. Moretti looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Are you insane? I just told you that you might be murdered and you're worried about your paycheck." "I have $80,000 in student debt. Yes, I'm worried about my paycheck." He shook his head, disgusted. "Personnel will mail it. Get out. Now." Sabrina's locker was in the basement next to the kitchen's industrial dishwashers. She grabbed her things mechanically. A change of clothes, her worn copy of her mother's research notes, the thumb drive containing every piece of information she'd gathered over 2 years. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Ms. Fisher." The voice was deep, accented, definitely not Romano. "My name is Luca. I work for Mr. Romano. He would like to meet with you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. The address is on the card he gave you." "I didn't agree to—" "This isn't a request." Luca's tone was polite but absolutely final. "Mr. Romano was impressed by your performance tonight. He has a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "The kind that pays better than waitressing." A pause. "The kind that might give you answers about your mother's disappearance." Sabrina's breath caught. "How do you know about 10 a.m., Ms. Fisher? I suggest you come alone." "And Ms. Fisher?" His voice dropped lower. "Mr. Romano doesn't make offers twice. If you don't show, you go back to being invisible. Except now, you'll be invisible to someone who knows you're dangerous." The line went dead. Sabrina stared at her phone, her mother's voice echoing in her memory from 5 years ago. "Sometimes, Sabrina, the only way to find the truth is to walk straight into the lion's den. Just make sure you're armed with something the lion wants." She pulled out Romano's business card. On the back, in sharp, precise handwriting, "You want answers? I need your skills. Tomorrow we negotiate." The address was in Tribeca. Expensive, private, dangerous. Sabrina Fisher had spent 2 years being invisible, playing it safe, gathering crumbs of information. And in one moment of defiance, she'd blown her cover completely. Now the most dangerous man in Manhattan wanted to meet her. She should run, change her name, disappear. Instead, she tucked the card back in her pocket and walked out of the cathedral for the last time, already planning what she'd say tomorrow when she walked straight into the lion's den. Because Salvo Romano had made one critical mistake tonight. He'd assumed she was too scared to fight back. And Sabrina Fisher had spent 5 years learning that fear was just another language, one she'd learned to speak fluently. The address led to a building in Tribeca that didn't advertise its exclusivity. It simply assumed it. Sabrina stood on the sidewalk at 9:55 a.m., staring up at the glass and steel tower that reflected the morning sun like a blade. No doorman, no visible entrance. Just a single black door with a biometric scanner that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. She'd spent the night in her tiny studio apartment, not sleeping, running through every possible scenario. Romano wanted to kill her. Romano wanted to recruit her. Romano wanted to use her and then dispose of her. Romano actually had information about her mother. All equally plausible, all equally terrifying. The black door opened before she could touch it. Luca stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that had seen violence and caused more. His suit was expensive, but his eyes were cold. "Ms. Fisher," he said, "Mr. Romano is expecting you." The elevator ride was silent and went up forever. 42 floors. Sabrina watched the numbers climb and wondered if this was the last decision she'd ever make. The doors opened directly into a penthouse that made her catch her breath. It was a study in contradictions. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, all modern glass and steel and minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black. But the walls held treasures that belonged in museums, a small Caravaggio that Sabrina recognized from an art history textbook. What looked suspiciously like a Bernini sketch. Byzantine icons that glowed with centuries of gold leaf, old world and new, violence and beauty, power and art. The space was Salvo Romano in architectural form. "You're punctual," his voice came from behind her. Sabrina turned. Romano stood near the windows, backlit by morning sun, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire education. He looked different in daylight, younger somehow, but no less dangerous. His dark eyes tracked her movement with predatory focus. "You threatened to make me invisible if I didn't show," Sabrina said, keeping her voice steady. That seemed motivating. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Coffee?" "No, thank you." "You should eat something. You look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't. I spent the night wondering if you were going to kill me. If I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having coffee." He gestured to a leather chair. "Sit. We have business to discuss." Sabrina sat. The chair was obscenely comfortable. Romano remained standing, a tactical choice that kept him physically dominant. She recognized the power play and refused to be intimidated. "You speak Sicilian," Romano said, not bothering with preamble. "Not classroom Italian, not tourist phrases, the real dialect. Palermitano, the language of my grandmother's village." "My mother was thorough in her research. Your mother was investigating my family when she disappeared." It wasn't a question. 5 years ago, Maria Fisher, journalist, she was working on a piece about historical Mafia ties to legitimate American businesses. Sabrina's heart hammered. "You knew her?" "I knew of her. I was 28, just taking over after my father's death. I had other concerns." His expression was unreadable. "But her disappearance was noted. Investigated even. Not by police, by us. We wanted to know who was asking questions." "And what did you find?" "That she asked the right questions in the wrong places, that she made someone nervous, that she vanished before we could determine who." Romano finally sat across from her. His posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. And that 5 years later her daughter shows up in my private dining room speaking a language she shouldn't know, working a job she's overqualified for, clearly searching for something. I want to know what happened to her. I know, that's why you're here. Romano leaned forward slightly. But first I have a problem, and you're going to solve it. Sabrina bristled. I'm not your employee. Not yet. He pulled a leather folder from the side table, opened it, extracted a single piece of paper. This is a cashier's check for $500,000. Sabrina's breath stopped. The number stared at her from the paper, $500,000, more money than she'd see in 5 years of waitressing. That's your signing bonus, Romano continued. It erases your student debt and gives you a comfortable cushion. In exchange, you work for me for the next month, maybe longer, depending on results. Doing what? Translating menus? His eyes glinted with something that might have been amusement. I have a crisis. 3 days ago, a crucial digital ledger went missing from my organization. This ledger contains financial records that link my legitimate businesses, shipping, real estate, import-export, to their funding sources. Without it, I can't prove the legality of several major transactions currently under federal scrutiny. Sounds like a you problem. It becomes a you problem when I explain how to find it. Romano pulled out his phone, swiped, showed her a photograph. Before the ledger was stolen, my financial officer, the man who betrayed me, left a coded message, a series of instructions written entirely in archaic Sicilian proverbs. Not modern Italian, not even standard Sicilian, the old language, the kind my great-grandmother would have used. Sabrina leaned forward despite herself, studying the image. The text was dense, handwritten in tight script. Even from the photo, she could see the linguistic complexity, old verb forms, regional idioms, cultural references that would be opaque to anyone without deep knowledge. You need someone to translate it, she said. I need someone to interpret it. Translation is just words. I need intent. I need cultural context. I need someone who understands what these proverbs mean, not just what they say. His intensity was magnetic, dangerous. My current experts are useless. They know Italian, they know some Sicilian. But this? He gestured at the phone. This is a cipher, wrapped in culture, wrapped in history. This requires someone who lived in the language, who knows it like breathing. And you think that's me? I know that's you. Last night you didn't just speak Sicilian. You understood the cultural context of my insults well enough to throw them back in my face with precision. He leaned back. You're exactly what I need. Brilliant, desperate, and personally motivated to cooperate. By personally motivated, you mean you're dangling information about my mother like bait. I'm offering you a trade. You solve my problem, I give you access to my organization's archives, everything we know about your mother's investigation, every name she talked to, every place she went, every thread she was pulling. Romano's expression was serious now. I want answers too, Ms. Fisher. Someone in my organization made your mother disappear. That person is a problem I intend to eliminate. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air electric with tension and possibility. $500,000, Sabrina said slowly. 1 month of work, full access to your archives. And you work as a consultant, not a subordinate. You report directly to me, answer to no one else. He paused. But you do this on my terms, my timeline. And if you find something in those archives that incriminates me personally, his eyes were black ice, you keep it to yourself until the job is done. So I'm trading one master for another. You're trading invisibility for power. Romano stood, moved to the window, his silhouette dark against the bright sky. You've spent 2 years gathering crumbs. I'm offering you the whole table. The question is whether you're brave enough to sit at it. Sabrina stood as well, walked to where he stood, close enough to see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were loose at his sides, confident, dangerous, absolutely certain she'd say yes. I have conditions, she said. Of course you do. I'm a consultant, not an employee. I set my own hours. I have final say on my interpretations. You don't overrule me because you don't like the answer. Agreed. I get full access to the archives, not curated files, everything, and I get to make copies. His jaw tightened. Dangerous request. Necessary one. I'm not trusting my only leverage to your goodwill. Romano studied her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled, sharp, predatory, but genuine. You negotiate like someone who's done this before. I've been poor my whole life. You learn to fight for every inch. Coraggio. Courage. He extended his hand. We have a deal, Ms. Fisher. Sabrina looked at his hand. Broad, calloused, despite the expensive suits, the hand of a man who'd built an empire through violence and will. She could walk away, stay invisible, stay safe. Or she could shake the devil's hand and finally get answers. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, electric. We have a deal, Mr. Romano. Salvo, he said. If we're going to work together, use my name. Sabrina. Sabrina. He said it with the Sicilian pronunciation, rolling the R, making it sound like a caress. Welcome to the family business. Try not to die. Try not to have me killed. Despite everything, the danger, the risk, the absolute insanity of what she'd just agreed to, they both smiled. And in that moment, Sabrina Fisher realized she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her life. Possibly both. The elevator didn't just go up, it also went down. Salvo pressed his palm against a panel Sabrina hadn't noticed before, and the elevator descended past the lobby, past the parking garage, into depths that definitely weren't on any building schematic filed with the city. You have a secret underground lair, Sabrina said. Of course you do. Very Bond villain of you. I prefer to think of it as practical. Salvo's tone was dry. Privacy is expensive in Manhattan. I pay for mine vertically. The doors opened onto a corridor of polished concrete and recessed lighting. It felt less like a basement and more like a bunker, the kind of place designed to survive things that ended poorly for everyone else. This is where you bring people who ask too many questions, isn't it? Sabrina asked, following him down the corridor. Only the ones I like. Should I be flattered or terrified? Both is appropriate. He stopped at a steel door with another biometric lock, his palm print, his eye scan, a numeric code he entered with practiced speed. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss that sounded expensive and ominous in equal measure. The room beyond was pure, calculated intimidation. No windows, walls lined with servers and monitors showing security feeds from what looked like half of Manhattan. A massive table made of dark wood that had probably witnessed confessions extracted through means Sabrina didn't want to contemplate. The lighting was LED and surgical, making everything sharp-edged and shadowless. It was a room designed to make people talk. Welcome to the war room, Salvo said. We'll be spending a lot of time here. Sabrina walked in, her bright presence. Jeans, a sweater, the color of autumn leaves, hair loose around her shoulders, a jarring contrast to the room's aggressive masculinity. You know, most people collaborate in coffee shops, maybe a library. Most people aren't decoding messages that could put them in federal prison. He moved to the table, where a laptop sat closed beside a leather folder. Coffee shops have witnesses. This room has soundproofing and a Faraday cage. Choose your preference. When you put it that way, the evil lair sounds great. Despite himself, Salvo's mouth twitched. Sit. We have work to do. Sabrina sat across from him. A tactical error, she realized immediately. Sitting across meant eye contact. Eye contact with Salvo Romano was like staring into a furnace. Intense, consuming, dangerous. She should have sat beside him, maintained professional distance. Too late now. Salvo opened the laptop, pulled up the document. This is the message. 43 lines of archaic Sicilian. My financial officer, Marco Benedetti, wrote this before he stole the ledger and disappeared. We found it 3 hours after he vanished. Sabrina leaned forward, studying the text. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Fear and urgency bled through every letter. "He was terrified when he wrote this," she said immediately. "He should be. When I find him, terror will be the least of his problems." Very comforting, really setting a collaborative tone here. She ignored his dark look and focused on the text. Okay. First line. Lulupu kasi fapakura, nundura asai. The wolf who becomes a sheep doesn't last long. I know what the words mean. What do they mean? Patience, crime lord. I'm getting there. Sabrina pulled out her phone, opened a notes app, began typing. This isn't just a proverb, it's a warning. Marco is saying someone in your organization is pretending to be loyal but isn't. He's identifying himself as the wolf who tried to become a sheep, tried to fit in, play the game, but failed. Salvo leaned back, his eyes never leaving her face. Continue. Line 2. Umali kaveni di notti. Ujornu uvidi. The evil that comes at night, the day will see it. She paused, thinking. He's saying whatever he did, stealing the ledger, happened at night, literally or figuratively, but it will be exposed in daylight. He knows he can't hide forever. Where did he hide it? I'm getting there. Stop being impatient. I'm a patient man. You're really not. Sabrina scanned the next several lines, her mind working faster as the patterns emerged. Oh, this is clever. He's not just using proverbs, he's layering them. Each one contains a clue to the next. It's a linguistic scavenger hunt. Explain. Line 5. Ku cerca trova, ma non sempre ciduca cerca. Who searches finds, but not always what they're searching for. That's a location clue. He's saying the ledger is somewhere people are searching, but not for the right thing. Salvo's intensity sharpened. My people have been searching his apartment, his office, his known associates, but you're searching for a digital ledger. He's saying you're looking in the wrong format. Sabrina's excitement was building now, the intellectual puzzle igniting something in her brain that had been dormant for years. What if it's not digital anymore? What if he converted it? To what? Line 8 gives us the answer. A carta canta, lu pisci un para. Paper sings, fish don't talk. She looked up at him, triumphant. He printed it. The ledger is on paper, actual physical paper. For the first time since she'd met him, Salvo Romano looked impressed. In 43 lines of coded text, you found that in under 10 minutes. I'm good at my job. Remember that when you're writing my performance review. I'm beginning to think I'm underpaying you. You're definitely underpaying me. I'll renegotiate after I save your criminal empire. She bent back to the text, her fingers flying across her phone screen. Now we need location. That's going to be harder. The proverbs from lines 15 through 23 are all about family, loyalty, blood. He's saying, wait. She stopped. Reread the section. Her blood went cold. What? Salvo's voice was sharp. What did you find? Line 19. U sangue non è acqua, ma a tradimento u diventa rosso. Blood isn't water, but betrayal turns it red. Sabrina looked up at him. Salvo? Marco isn't just telling you where the ledger is, he's telling you who forced him to steal it. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Who? Someone with blood ties. Someone in your family. She hesitated. The next line confirms it. Ku ti cresci ti distruggi. Who raises you destroys you. Someone who was supposed to be loyal, someone close, someone who had access to Marco and could pressure him. Salvo stood abruptly, his chair scraping against concrete. He walked to the wall of monitors, his back to her, his shoulders rigid with barely contained fury. My cousin, he said quietly. Cristiano. He's been circling for years, thinking he deserves what my father left me. Would Marco be loyal to him? Marco served my father. When my father died, Cristiano tried to claim Marco's loyalty along with everything else. Salvo's hands clenched into fists. I thought I'd resolved it. Apparently I was wrong. Sabrina stood, walked around the table toward him. Not too close. He was radiating violence like heat from a furnace, but close enough to speak quietly. Then we need to find the ledger before Cristiano does, she said. Because if he has proof of your financial dealings, he has leverage. He has a death wish. Salvo turned, and Sabrina found herself much closer than she'd intended, close enough to see gold flecks in his dark eyes, to smell his cologne, something expensive and cedar sharp, to feel the dangerous energy rolling off him in waves. "We should keep working," she said, her voice not quite steady. "We should." Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, electric and dangerous. Sabrina's heart hammered. This was insane. She was standing in an underground bunker with a man who could make her disappear with a phone call, and instead of fear, all she felt was heat. "Line 24, Salvo said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. "What does it say?" Sabrina's brain stuttered back into gear. She moved away, necessary distance, and grabbed her phone with hands that trembled slightly. "Lu cori conosci avia, ma I peri si perdinu." The heart knows the way, but the feet get lost. She cleared her throat. "He's saying the location is somewhere emotionally significant, somewhere that means something to Marco or to your family." "My father's estate in Staten Island." Salvo pulled out his phone, began typing orders to his people. "It's been closed since he died. Marco had keys, full access. He could have hidden anything there." "Then that's where we start." Salvo looked at her, really looked at her, with something that might have been respect or might have been something more dangerous. "You're brilliant. You know that? I've been told, usually right before someone tries to use me. I'm using you. I'm not pretending otherwise. I appreciate the honesty. Refreshing change from most men. Most men are idiots. Present company excluded?" His smile was sharp. "I'm many things, Sabrina. An idiot isn't one of them." The way he said her name, rolling the R, making it sound like a caress, did something dangerous to her pulse. "We should go to Staten Island," she said, "before your cousin finds what we're looking for." "We will, but first—" He moved closer again, and this time Sabrina held her ground. "First, I need you to understand something." "What?" "This isn't a game. What we're doing, the people we're going against, they kill for less than what you've already learned." His intensity was overwhelming. "You're in danger now. Real danger. From my cousin, from whoever he's working with, from anyone who realizes you're the key to finding that ledger." "I know. Do you? Because you're joking and smiling like this is an adventure. It's called coping, Salvo. Some people drink. I make inappropriate jokes." She met his eyes, unflinching. "I've spent 5 years looking for my mother. You think danger scares me now?" Something shifted in his expression. "You're either fearless or insane." "Definitely both." And then, impossibly, he laughed. Genuine, surprised, the sound warming the cold room. "Sabrina Fisher," he said, "you're going to be the death of me. Statistically, your cousin is more likely to kill you." Also true. He stepped back, the professional mask sliding back into place. "Get your things. We leave for Staten Island in an hour." "And Sabrina?" "Yes? Stay close to me, at all times. Understood?" She should have bristled at the command. Should have reminded him she was a consultant, not a subordinate. Instead, she just nodded. Because staying close to Salvo Romano felt less like an order and more like exactly where she wanted to be. Dangerous, insane, inevitable. The Staten Island estate was exactly what Sabrina expected, a sprawling monument to old money and older violence, surrounded by high walls and higher secrets. They'd found nothing. 3 hours of searching, through the main house, the guest cottage, even the old wine cellar that smelled of mildew and regret, had yielded exactly 0 hidden ledgers. Marco had been clever. Or the proverbs meant something else entirely. Now they sat in Salvo's car, a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Sabrina's entire life, parked in the circular driveway as twilight turned the sky purple and gold. "We're missing something," Salvo said, his jaw tight with frustration. "Obviously, but what?" Sabrina stared at her notes on her phone, rereading the Proverbs for the 100th time. The heart knows the way. Somewhere emotionally significant. Your father's estate should have been the answer. Should have been? Salvo's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Marco knew this place. He worked for my father for 15 years. If he wanted to hide something here, then we would have found it. Sabrina looked at him. Really looked at him. The frustration in his face was deeper than just a missing ledger. It was personal. This was your father's house. It was. You don't like being here. Salvo was quiet for a long moment. Then, my father built an empire. He also built a prison. This house, it's where he taught me what power costs, what loyalty demands, what happens to people who betray the family. He gestured at the darkening estate. Every room has a memory. Most of them aren't good. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the cold crime boss from the war room. This was something rawer, more human. Is that why you never sold it? Sabrina asked quietly. I can't sell it. It's a monument, family history. My cousins would riot if I tried. His smile was bitter. So it sits here, empty, a testament to a man who loved power more than his own son. Salvo. We should go. He started the engine. There's a safe house in Brooklyn. We'll regroup there, go through the Proverbs again with fresh eyes. Maybe we're translating wrong. We're not translating wrong. I'm certain of that. Then we're missing context. He pulled out of the driveway, the gates opening automatically as they approached. Either way, we're not finding it tonight. The safe house in Brooklyn was actually a beautifully restored brownstone that probably cost several $1,000,000. Sabrina was beginning to understand that Salvo Romano's version of safe came with hardwood floors and designer furniture. You have remarkable taste for someone who threatens people professionally, Sabrina said, looking around the living room. I contain multitudes. Salvo was in the kitchen, open concept naturally, pulling out ingredients with the efficiency of someone who actually knew how to cook. Are you hungry? Starving, actually. I've been too focused on ancient Sicilian to remember to eat. Then sit. I'll make dinner. You cook? You sound surprised. You have people for everything else. I assumed you had people for food too. Salvo smiled, small, genuine. My grandmother taught me. She said a man who can't feed himself is at the mercy of others. She didn't raise me to be at anyone's mercy. Smart woman. Terrifying woman. She survived fascism, war, immigration, and my grandfather. She was made of iron wrapped in lace. He pulled out a cutting board, began dicing tomatoes with professional precision. She also spoke the old Sicilian, the dialect, you know. When she heard me speak Italian instead of her language, she'd hit me with a wooden spoon. Sabrina laughed, surprising herself. My mother did the same thing. Not the wooden spoon, but the disappointment was worse. She'd spent so much time learning Sicilian for her research. She wanted me to appreciate it, preserve it. She sounds like someone my grandmother would have liked. They would have either been best friends or mortal enemies. No middle ground. The best people are like that. Salvo was making pasta now, his hands moving with practiced ease. Binary, clear, no room for the compromise that makes people weak. Is that why you're so intense all the time? No room for compromise? I'm a crime boss, Sabrina. Compromise is another word for weakness. Weakness gets you killed. Must be exhausting, being that vigilant constantly. He paused, looked at her across the kitchen island. It is, but it's kept me alive for 33 years in a business where most men don't see 30. The vulnerability was back, fleeting, but real. Sabrina felt something shift in her chest, some barrier she'd been maintaining begin to crack. For what it's worth, she said quietly, you're not what I expected. What did you expect? A monster, honestly. A man who insults waitresses and makes people disappear. Someone easier to hate. And now? Now I think you're a man trapped in a role you didn't choose, trying to survive a legacy that's eating you alive. She held his gaze. And I think you hate that I can see it. The silence stretched between them, electric and dangerous. Then Salvo turned back to the stove. Dinner in 10 minutes. There's wine in the fridge. Sabrina recognized the retreat for what it was, self-protection. She let him have it. They ate at the dining table, the meal simple but perfect. Pasta aglio e olio, a green salad, bread that Salvo admitted he'd picked up from a bakery he refused to name. The wine was Italian, expensive, and loosened tongues in exactly the way wine was designed to. "Tell me about your mother," Salvo said. "The real story. Not the journalist who disappeared. The woman who taught you Sicilian." Sabrina set down her wine glass. She was brilliant, obsessive. When she got interested in something, she'd dive in completely. The Mafia history project consumed her last 2 years. She learned the language, interviewed old-timers, traced family trees. She said she was writing a book about how organized crime shaped American immigrant culture. Sabrina's voice tightened. But in her notes, the real notes she kept at home, she was tracking something specific. Money. Connections between old Sicilian families and new American businesses. She thought there was a thread no one else had found. And that thread got her killed. Maybe, probably. Sabrina looked at him. "You said you'd give me access to your archives. Names, places, dates. I need that, Salvo. Tonight. Before we find the ledger. Because I think—" She stopped. "Think what?" "I think whatever my mother found 5 years ago is connected to whatever Marco found now. The timing, the Sicilian codes, the inside betrayal." Her pulse quickened. "What if it's the same conspiracy? What if my mother stumbled onto whatever Cristiano is planning, and that's why she disappeared?" Salvo went very still. That would mean Marco's predecessor was involved in my mother's disappearance, and that person is still in your organization. Still connected, still dangerous. Cristo. Salvo stood, pulled out his phone. "Luca, I need the archive files. Everything from 5 years ago. Personnel records, financial transactions, external investigations. Bring them to the Brooklyn house. Now." He hung up, turned to Sabrina. "We cross-referenced tonight, your mother's notes against my family's records. If there's a connection, we find it." "Thank you," Sabrina said. "Don't thank me yet. If we find a connection, it means someone I trusted killed your mother. That's not a truth I want to face. But you will, because you're not your father. You want the truth even when it hurts." Something in his expression softened. "You see the best in people. Even me. That's dangerous in this world. Or maybe it's the only thing that keeps this world from being completely dark." Salvo moved around the table, stopped in front of her chair. Close. Too close. His intensity was overwhelming. "Sabrina," he said quietly, "you realize what we're doing? What this means? Finding the truth? Tying yourself to me, to my world, to dangers you can't imagine." His hand came up, almost touched her face, then dropped. "You could still walk away, take the money, disappear, live a normal life." "I stopped being normal the day my mother vanished." Sabrina stood, bringing them even closer. "And I don't want normal, I want answers, I want justice, and apparently," her voice dropped, "I want you." The words hung between them like a confession. Salvo's control cracked. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Sabrina," he murmured, "tu sia me rovina." "You are my ruin." "Good," she whispered. "Ruin sounds better than safe." He kissed her, not gently, not tentatively, but with the intensity of a man who'd been holding back for days and finally let go. His mouth was demanding, claiming, and Sabrina met him with equal fire. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing the contact like oxygen. This was insane, dangerous, crossing every professional line. She didn't care. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Salvo rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he said. "The worst," Sabrina agreed. "We should stop." "Absolutely." Neither of them moved. Then Salvo's phone buzzed. He pulled back, checked it, and his expression went cold. "Luca's here with the files, and he has news." He looked at Sabrina. "Marco's body was found an hour ago. Execution style. Brooklyn warehouse." Sabrina's blood turned to ice. "Cristiano?" "Probably, which means Marco never hid the ledger. Cristiano already has it." Sabrina's mind raced. "And if he has it, he has everything he needs to destroy you." Salvo's jaw clenched. "Then we stop playing defense. We go on offense." He held out his hand. "Ready to hunt a traitor?" Sabrina took his hand, let him pull her close one more time. "Let's burn his world down," she said. And in that moment, she meant it. The archive files covered the dining table like scattered pieces of a nightmare. Financial records, personnel files, surveillance photos, 5 years of Romano family business, all cross-referenced against the notes Sabrina had retrieved from her apartment, her mother's meticulous research, preserved in a fireproof box under her bed. It was 2 a.m. They'd been at this for 4 hours. And then Sabrina saw it. "Salvo." Her voice was sharp enough to cut through his concentration. He looked up from the laptop where he'd been tracking shell corporations. "Look at this." She placed 2 documents side by side. One was her mother's notebook, dated 5 years ago. The page marked with her mother's handwriting, "Meeting with MB, claims he can provide proof of financial connections. Nervous. Says his boss doesn't know. Red Hook, Warehouse District." The other was a personnel record from Salvo's files. Marco Benedetti, Chief Financial Officer. 5 years ago, he'd been junior accountant. His signature appeared on dozens of transactions flagged in her mother's research. "MB," Salvo said quietly. "Marco Benedetti. My mother met with him. He was her source." Sabrina's hands were shaking. He was going to give her proof. And then she disappeared. Salvo's expression went from cold to arctic. "Marco worked for my father. When I took over, he acted loyal, acted grateful. I promoted him, trusted him with everything." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "And all along, he killed your mother. Or knew who did." Sabrina flipped to another page in her mother's notes. She wrote this the day before she vanished. "MB called, says the meeting is off, too dangerous. Someone found out." He sounded terrified. Someone found out she had an inside source and eliminated the problem. Salvo stood, began pacing like a caged predator. That someone was either my father or Cristiano. Sabrina pulled up another file on her laptop. "Look at this. 5 years ago, Cristiano was running enforcement for your father. He would have been responsible for handling security threats." Cristo Santo. Salvo slammed his hand on the table hard enough to make the wine glasses jump. "Cristiano found out Marco was talking. He either killed your mother himself or had her killed. Then he used that knowledge to control Marco for 5 years. Marco wasn't stealing the ledger willingly. He was being blackmailed by the man who made him an accessory to murder." The room felt like it was spinning. Sabrina's mother hadn't just been investigating the Mafia, she'd been killed by it. And Marco, terrified, desperate Marco, had been living with that guilt for 5 years until it finally broke him. "That's why Marco left the coded message," Sabrina said slowly. "He wanted us to find out. He wanted someone to stop Cristiano before he could do it to anyone else. And Cristiano killed him for it." Salvo's fury was a living thing, filling the room. He killed Marco to keep him quiet, and now he has the ledger. He has everything he needs to destroy me and take over. Not everything. Sabrina pulled up the photographs of Marco's coded message on her laptop, scrolling to the final lines she hadn't fully translated yet. The last proverb, "U tesoru samucia uni a morti duna a vita." The treasure hides where death gives life. What does that mean? I wasn't sure until now. But if Marco met my mother in Red Hook, Sabrina pulled up a map on her laptop, and if he wanted to hide something there, somewhere significant, somewhere death and life intersect. The old cemetery. Salvo was already reaching for his phone. Red Hook has a historic cemetery, closed to the public for years. My father used to own the property through a shell company. That's where Marco hid the real ledger, not the one Cristiano has, a backup. Insurance. Sabrina's mind raced. Marco knew Cristiano would come for him, so he created a decoy and hid the real evidence where only someone who understood the full message could find it. Salvo was already on the phone. Luca, Red Hook Cemetery. I need a team there in 20 minutes. Full tactical. We're recovering something, and I guarantee Cristiano will have the same idea once he realizes the ledger he has is fake. He hung up, turned to Sabrina. You're staying here. Like hell I am. Sabrina? Don't you dare. She stood, met his intensity with her own. Marco left that message for someone who could understand it. That someone is me. If there are more codes, more clues hidden at that location, you need me there to interpret them. It's going to be dangerous. Everything about this has been dangerous. I'm not stopping now. You could die. So could you. And I'm not letting you go alone. She moved closer, her voice dropping. You said I'm the only person you trust. That goes both ways now. We do this together or not at all. Salvo stared at her, and she could see the war in his eyes, the need to protect her battling with the knowledge that she was right. You stay behind me at all times, he said finally. You do exactly what I say. And if shooting starts, you run, understood? Understood. I'm serious, Sabrina. I won't risk you. And I won't let you face your cousin alone. She reached up, cupped his face. We're in this together now, for better or worse. Definitely worse. But he pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most reckless. You keep saying that like they're different things. Despite everything, the danger, the death, the violence waiting for them in a cemetery, he laughed. You make me crazy. Good. You were too controlled before. It was boring. I'm a crime boss. I'm not supposed to be entertaining. You're failing spectacularly at that. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, like a man going to war who needed to remember what he was fighting for. Sabrina kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring everything into it, fear and desire, and the desperate hope that they'd both survive the night. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Salvo pressed something cold into her hand, a small handgun, compact and deadly. Do you know how to use this? He asked. My mother taught me. She said a woman investigating dangerous men should know how to defend herself. Sabrina's throat tightened. She was right. Safety's here. Point and shoot. Aim center mass. His eyes were dark, serious. But Sabrina, only if you absolutely have to. Once you pull that trigger, there's no going back. You'll be marked, connected to this world forever. I've been connected since the day I spoke Sicilian in your private room, since the day my mother disappeared. She tucked the gun into her jacket pocket. I stopped being innocent a long time ago, Salvo. Now I'm just trying to survive long enough to get justice. Justice. He said it like the word tasted foreign. In my world, we call that revenge. Call it whatever you want. I call it closure. Salvo's phone buzzed. Luca's text, team assembled, ready when you are. It's time, Salvo said. He pulled on a jacket that probably had more concealed weapons than Sabrina wanted to think about. Last chance to stay here. Stay safe. Not a chance. I know. He almost smiled. That's why. He stopped, jaw tightening. Why what? Why I can't lose you. The words came out rough, unpolished. You're the first real thing I've had in years. The first person who sees me, not the empire or the name or the violence. Just me. Sabrina's heart twisted. Salvo, I know it's insane. I know we've known each other for 3 days, but insane seems to be our specialty. He took her hand, laced their fingers together. So here's my promise. I'm getting you through this. Whatever it takes. And when this is over, When Cristiano is dealt with and the ledger is recovered and your mother's killer is exposed, I'm going to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not in a safe house, not in a war room, somewhere normal, where the only thing we're fighting is whether to order dessert. Despite the fear, despite the danger waiting for them, Sabrina smiled. Is that a promise or a threat? Both. Then we better survive tonight. She squeezed his hand. Because I'm holding you to the dessert. Deal. He pulled her close one more time, pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sabrina mia, he murmured against her hair. My Sabrina. Resta con mia. Stay with me. Always, she whispered back. It was a promise neither of them was sure they could keep. But as they walked out into the Brooklyn night, toward a cemetery where death and life intersected, toward the final confrontation with a man who'd stolen everything from both of them, Sabrina realized something crucial. She wasn't just fighting for her mother anymore. She was fighting for Salvo, for the future they might have if they survived, for the chance to turn revenge into something that looked like love, and that was worth any risk. The car ride to Red Hook was silent, tactical. Luca drove with 4 more men in a follow vehicle, all armed, all dangerous, all loyal to Salvo in the way that meant they'd die before they'd betray him. The cemetery appeared through the darkness like something from a Gothic novel, wrought iron gates, weathered headstones, trees that had witnessed a century of burials and secrets. And somewhere in that darkness, Cristiano Romano was waiting, along with the truth about what happened to Maria Fisher. Ready? Salvo asked, checking his weapon one final time. Sabrina touched the gun in her pocket. Ready? Then let's finish this. They stepped into the cemetery, into the darkness, into the place where death gave life, and Sabrina Fisher, scholar turned warrior, prepared to face the man who'd destroyed her family. One way or another, tonight would end with answers, or it would end with blood. Possibly both. The cemetery was a trap. They realized it the moment the first shot cracked through the darkness, splintering the headstone 6 inches from Salvo's head. Down! Luca shouted, already returning fire toward the tree line. Sabrina hit the ground hard, Salvo's body covering hers instantly. The weight of him was solid, protective, terrifying in its implication. Someone was shooting at them with precision and intent to kill. They knew we were coming, Salvo growled, his weapon drawn, scanning the darkness. Cristiano has this place locked down. The ledger is bait. He wanted us here. Salvo pulled Sabrina behind a large marble tomb, Luca and 2 other men forming a defensive perimeter. He's going to try to kill us both and take everything. More gunfire erupted, rapid, professional, the sound of automatic weapons that had no business being in a Brooklyn cemetery. Luca's team returned fire, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like deadly fireflies. How many? Salvo asked Luca. At least 8. Maybe more. Professional setup. They've got positions on 3 sides. Luca's expression was grim. We're pinned down, capo. Then we move. The old mausoleum, 50 yards north. Stone walls, single entrance, better defensive position. Salvo looked at Sabrina. You stay with me. You don't leave my side for any reason. Clear? Crystal. They moved in formation, Luca's team providing cover fire while Salvo pulled Sabrina through the maze of headstones. Bullets chewed through marble and earth, the sound deafening. Sabrina's heart hammered against her ribs, her hand white-knuckled on the gun in her pocket that she prayed she wouldn't have to use. They made it to the mausoleum. Barely. One of Luca's men took a round to the shoulder, went down hard. Another dragged him inside while Luca slammed the heavy iron door shut. Barricade it, Salvo ordered. How bad is he? Through and through. He'll live. Luca was already on his phone. Calling in reinforcements. ETA 12 minutes. We might not have 12 minutes. Salvo moved to a narrow window, peered out into the darkness. Cristiano's not stupid. He's going to rush us before backup arrives. Sabrina's mind raced, cutting through the fear with the precision that had made her a brilliant student. The ledger. If he wanted to kill us, he could have done it from distance. He's got us pinned because he needs something. He needs to confirm the ledger we're after is real, Salvo said slowly. If it's a decoy, he's got nothing. His whole play falls apart. So he has to get close, has to talk. Sabrina looked at him. Which means we have leverage. Before Salvo could respond, a voice echoed through the cemetery, amplified, arrogant, familiar. Cugino. Cousin. Cristiano's voice carried over a bullhorn. Come va? Comfortable in your tomb? Fitting, no? Salvo's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. I know you can hear me, Cristiano continued in Sicilian. You and your little waitress. Very touching the way you protect her. Almost makes me feel bad about what I'm going to do to her after I kill you. Sabrina felt Salvo's fury like heat from a furnace. Don't respond, she whispered. He's trying to provoke you. I know what he's doing. But Salvo's hand was white-knuckled on his weapon. Tell me, Salvo, Cristiano called. Did she tell you? Did she explain how her whore mother tried to destroy our family? How she met with Marco? Tried to turn him against us? Sabrina's blood turned to ice. Your father handled it. Quick, clean. The bitch disappeared and Marco learned his lesson. Kept his mouth shut for 5 years. Cristiano laughed. But you couldn't leave it alone. Had to hire the daughter, had to let her dig. Now look where it got you. Salvo looked at Sabrina, and in his eyes, she saw confirmation. Confirmation that Cristiano had just confessed to her mother's murder. That all of this, 5 years of searching, of grief, of wondering, ended here, in a cemetery, with the truth spoken by the man who'd taken everything from her. He's moving, Luca hissed from the window. 4 men advancing on our position. Sabrina moved to the opposite window, peered out. Through the darkness, she could see shapes moving, tactical, coordinated, and she could hear voices, low and urgent, Italian, but not standard Italian. Sicilian slang mixed with what sounded like Calabrian dialect. A conversation between Cristiano's men about positioning, about timing, about the flanking maneuver they were setting up on the mausoleum's blind side. Salvo, Sabrina said urgently, they're coming around the east wall. 4 men. They're saying, she listened harder, Quanu ukapu duna usignu, sfunnamu a porta. When the boss gives the signal, we blow the door. Salvo's head snapped toward her. They have explosives? That's what they said. 30 seconds when Cristiano gives the word. Luca, east wall, now. Take them before they set charges. Luca and 2 men slipped out through a side window, moving like shadows. Seconds later, gunfire erupted. Close, brutal, the sound of a fight at knife-fighting distance. 2 down, Luca's voice came through the radio. 3rd is running. Merda! An explosion rocked the night, not the door, but somewhere near the cemetery's entrance. Flashbang or grenade, Sabrina couldn't tell. The sound was followed by screaming in Italian. That's our backup, Salvo said. Cristiano's pinned between us and reinforcements. Then he's going to get desperate. Sabrina's tactical mind was working overtime now. He needs to end this fast, or he loses everything. As if summoning him with her words, the mausoleum door shuddered. Not an explosion, someone kicking it, hard. Salvo, Cristiano's voice no longer amplified right outside. Open the door, let's talk like family. Family doesn't murder family, Salvo called back. Family does what's necessary. Our father taught us that. A pause. I have Marco's ledger, the real one. Every transaction, every name, every dirty deal our family made for 30 years. You know what that's worth to the feds? To your rivals? Then why haven't you sold it yet? Because I want what's mine by right. The business, the organization, the respect. Cristiano's voice hardened. You're weak, Salvo. You hire outsiders. You trust women. You're making us soft. I'm saving the family from your weakness. Sabrina felt Salvo's rage like a living thing beside her. Your move, Cugino, Cristiano called. Come out, or I burn this place down with you in it. Salvo looked at Luca. How many men do we have now? 8. Plus backup is 90 seconds out. Enough. Salvo checked his weapon, then looked at Sabrina. Stay here. Whatever happens. No. Sabrina grabbed his arm. He killed my mother. I'm facing him. Sabrina. Together. She said it with finality. We finish this together or not at all. Something in Salvo's expression shifted. Resignation mixed with fierce pride. Benny, together, but you stay behind me. Deal. Salvo moved to the door, called out in Sicilian, Cristiano, I'm coming out, just me and you. Leave the girl out of this. The girl is the reason we're here. She dug up what should have stayed buried. Then let's settle it, you and me, face to face, the way our father would have wanted. Silence then. Open the door, slowly, weapons down. Salvo looked at Luca. On my signal, you hit them from behind, understood? Capisci, capo? Salvo opened the door. Cristiano Romano stood 10 feet away, flanked by 3 men with automatic weapons. He was younger than Salvo by 5 years, handsome in a way that looked like it had been weaponized. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. Cugino, Cristiano said, you look terrible. Love making you soft? Love's making me dangerous. Salvo stepped out, Sabrina right behind him despite his protective positioning. You killed Maria Fisher. You blackmailed Marco. You stole from your own family. For what? Power you don't deserve? Power our father should have given me. I was smarter, stronger, more ruthless. But he gave everything to you because you were older. Cristiano's composure cracked. I've spent 5 years cleaning up your mistakes, making us strong again, and you repay me by bringing in this putana who— Finish that sentence, Salvo said quietly, and you die right here. You going to kill me over a waitress? I'm going to kill you for murdering an innocent woman and betraying your family. Salvo's weapon was loose at his side, but Sabrina could feel the violence coiling in him. Where's the real ledger? Cristiano smiled. Safe, and it stays safe until you're dead and I'm in charge. Minitozu. The word came from Sabrina, pure Sicilian, dripping with contempt. Liar. You don't have it. If you did, you wouldn't be here. You'd be selling it to the highest bidder and running. Cristiano's eyes snapped to her. You shut your mouth. Tu si un kudzu ka pensa desiri furbu. You're an idiot who thinks he's clever. Sabrina stepped forward, her Sicilian perfect cutting. Marco hid the real ledger where only someone with brains could find it. You've got nothing but a fake and a death wish. I'll kill you myself. You'll try. Sabrina's hand moved to the gun in her pocket. But you'll have to go through him first, and Cugino. She used the familiar term deliberately, mockingly. You're not good enough. Cristiano's face twisted with rage. His hand moved toward his weapon. Everything happened at once. Luca's team hit from behind, gunfire erupting, Cristiano's men going down. Salvo moved, putting himself directly between Sabrina and Cristiano's gun. The shot that would have killed her hit Salvo's shoulder instead. He didn't even flinch, just raised his own weapon and put 3 rounds center mass into his cousin. Cristiano went down hard, shock replacing rage on his face. I'm stronger than you thought, Salvo finished, because I have something worth protecting. Cristiano's eyes went blank. Silence fell over the cemetery like snow. Sabrina stared at Salvo's bleeding shoulder, at the man who'd just taken a bullet meant for her, at the body of the man who'd killed her mother. It's over, Salvo said quietly. Then he swayed. Salvo. Sabrina caught him as his knees buckled. Aiuto! Help! Luca was there instantly, helping her lower Salvo to the ground. Through the shoulder, not fatal. Capo? Sta con me. Stay with me. I'm fine, Salvo muttered, but his face was pale, his breathing shallow. You're an idiot, Sabrina said, her hands pressing against his wound to stop the bleeding. You could have died. Worth it. His eyes found hers. Tu vali tutti I cosi, Sabrina. You're worth everything, Sabrina. Don't you dare die on me after saying something that romantic. That's emotional terrorism. Despite the pain, he smiled. Non moru, promessa. I won't die, promise. The ambulance arrived along with Salvo's reinforcements. Paramedics swarmed, professional and efficient. They stabilized Salvo, loaded him onto a stretcher. The ledger, Sabrina said urgently to Luca. We need to find... Already on it. Luca held up a phone. Marco left digital breadcrumbs. Final location is uploading now. Let me see. The coordinates appeared. Not the cemetery, not a warehouse. The cathedral, the restaurant where this had all started. Hidden in the wine cellar, in the very place Sabrina had spilled Barolo on a crime boss's shoe and changed both their lives forever. Cristo, Sabrina breathed. He hid it where we met. Poetic, Luca said dryly. I'll send a team. No. Sabrina stood. I'll get it. It's mine to find. She looked at Salvo on the stretcher, his eyes closed, his face peaceful despite the wound. Tornu prestu, she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. I'll be back soon. His hand caught hers. Ti aspettu. I'll wait for you. Always the romantic, even when bleeding. Specialmente when bleeding, more dramatic. She laughed, slightly hysterical, mostly relieved, and then she was running toward Luca's car, toward the restaurant where a dead man had hidden the truth, toward the final piece of her mother's story, and toward the future she and Salvo might actually survive to have. Together. The ledger was exactly where Marco had hidden it, in the wine cellar of the cathedral, tucked inside a hollowed-out case of 1985 Brunello, surrounded by bottles that cost more than most people's cars. The irony wasn't lost on Sabrina. Her mother's killer had hidden the evidence of his crimes in the exact place where Sabrina had accidentally started this whole chain of events, where Barolo had spilled and Sicilian had been spoken, and two lives had collided with enough force to change everything. She held the waterproof case in her hands, surprisingly light for something that contained so much weight: financial records, names, transactions, proof of 30 years of organized crime, all meticulously documented by a man who'd been too afraid to expose it while he was alive. Luca's team secured it, photographed every page, uploaded encrypted copies to 3 separate servers. By dawn, the evidence would be in the hands of Salvo's lawyers, his accountants, and, if Sabrina had anything to say about it, the FBI agents investigating the Romano family's legitimate businesses. But first, she needed to get back to Salvo. The penthouse was quiet when she arrived at 4 a.m., still dark outside, the city a carpet of lights below. Luca had texted that Salvo was stable, the bullet had missed anything vital. He'd refused to stay in the hospital because crime bosses didn't trust doctors they couldn't control. Sabrina found him in the master bedroom, a space she hadn't seen before, all dark wood and expensive linens and windows that overlooked the Hudson. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, shirtless, his shoulder professionally bandaged, his face pale but alert. You should be resting, Sabrina said from the doorway. I was waiting for you. His voice was rough, tired. Did you find it? We found it. Marco documented everything. Your operations are clean, provably legitimate. Cristiano's conspiracy falls apart the moment anyone reads that ledger. She moved into the room, set down her bag. You're safe. Your business is safe. It's over. It's not over. Salvo's expression was dark. Cristiano had partners. Rival families who were counting on him to deliver. They're not going to forget this. They're not going to forget you. Then we deal with them. Sabrina, no. She sat beside him on the bed, careful not to jostle his wounded shoulder. You took a bullet for me. You don't get to push me away now because things might get dangerous. Things have been dangerous since the moment I opened my mouth in that restaurant. This is different. Before, you were a tool, a means to an end. Now, he looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. Now you're a target, because they know what you mean to me, because they know hurting you is the fastest way to destroy me. So we're both targets. We'll just have to be careful together. You're not listening. I'm listening perfectly. You're trying to protect me by pushing me away. It's very noble and very stupid. She took his hand, laced their fingers together. I'm not going anywhere, Salvo. We finish this together. All of it. The threat, the fallout, the future. Together. He stared at their joined hands, his jaw working. I need to tell you something. About your mother. About what really happened. Sabrina's heart clenched. Okay. My father, he was the one who gave the order. Salvo's voice was flat, controlled, like he was reading from a script to keep the emotion out. Marco told him that a journalist was asking questions, getting too close to financial connections we'd spent decades building. My father saw her as a threat to the family, so he ordered Cristiano to handle it. Handle it, Sabrina repeated. You mean kill her? Make her disappear, same result. Salvo's hand tightened on hers. I was 28. I'd just taken over after my father's death. I didn't know about any of it until months later, and by then it was done. Your mother was gone. Marco was terrified into silence. Cristiano was untouchable because he'd done it for family. You could have told the police. And destroyed everything my father built? Torn apart the organization? Put dozens of people in prison who were just following orders? Salvo's voice was bitter. I was a coward. I chose family over justice. I chose silence over truth. And your mother stayed missing because I didn't have the courage to expose what had been done. Sabrina sat with that for a long moment. The truth she'd been searching for, finally spoken. Her mother hadn't just vanished. She'd been murdered. On orders from a dead man, carried out by a man who was now dead himself, covered up by the man sitting beside her. I should hate you, she said quietly. You should. But I don't. She looked at him. You were 28, grieving your father, trying to hold together an empire you didn't choose. You made the wrong choice, but you were trying to survive. That's not an excuse. It's not, but it's an explanation. Sabrina took a shaky breath. Your father took my mother from me, but you gave me the truth. You helped me find the evidence. You risked everything to make sure Cristiano answered for what he did. She squeezed his hand. You're not your father, Salvo. You're trying to be better. That has to count for something. You're too forgiving. I'm practical. Hating you won't bring my mother back. But working with you? That might actually change things. Make the organization cleaner. Stop other families from getting hurt the way mine did. She shifted closer. You said you wanted redemption. Let me help you earn it. Salvo looked at her like she was something impossible. You should walk away. Take the money, start over somewhere safe, live the life your mother would have wanted for you. My mother would have wanted me to fight for the truth, to make powerful people answer for their crimes, to not back down just because things got scary. Sabrina cupped his face, made him look at her. I'm not walking away. I'm staying, with you, in this mess, because somehow against all logic and self-preservation She stopped, the words catching in her throat. Say it, Salvo whispered. Dimmaloo. I love you. The words came out quiet but certain. I love you even though you're dangerous and damaged and probably going to get me killed. I love you because you listened when I spoke, because you see me as more than furniture, because you took a bullet meant for me without hesitating, her voice broke, because you're trying to be better than the darkness you were born into. Salvo's control shattered. He pulled her close, careful of his wounded shoulder, and kissed her with a desperation that tasted like relief and fear and love all tangled together. Ti amo, he murmured against her mouth. I love you. Tamu makari kasi pazza, tamu makari kami fai veniri vuglia digestiri megiu. I love you even though you're crazy. I love you even though you make me want to be better. Is that last part supposed to be romantic? It's the most romantic thing I've ever said. She laughed, watery, exhausted, utterly genuine. Then we're both disasters. The best kind. He rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Tomorrow we deal with the aftermath. Tonight, just stay. Always, Sabrina whispered. They lay down together, carefully, Sabrina mindful of his wound, Salvo pulling her close despite the pain. The city glittered outside the windows, indifferent to their small drama playing out 42 floors above the streets. "What happens now?" Sabrina asked quietly. "Now we rebuild. Make the organization legitimate. Use the ledger to protect our legal operations. Cut ties with anyone who can't transition to clean business." Salvo's voice was thoughtful. "And we establish something in your mother's name. A scholarship, maybe, for students studying investigative journalism. Make sure her work meant something." Sabrina's throat tightened. "You'd do that? I'd do anything for you, including honoring the woman whose death my family caused." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "It won't bring her back, but maybe it keeps her legacy alive." Salvo Romano, secretly a romantic. "Tell anyone and I'll have to kill you. You'd miss me too much." Probably true. They fell silent, the exhaustion of the past days finally catching up. Sabrina felt herself drifting, safe in a way she hadn't felt in 5 years, safe with a man who was dangerous to everyone else but gentle with her. "Sabrina? When this is over, when the threats are handled and the business is clean and we can breathe again." He paused. "Marry me." Sabrina's eyes flew open. "What?" "Marry me. Not now, not tomorrow, but someday, when we've earned it." His voice was serious, steady. "I want a future with you, a real one, not just survival, life." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only one I've got." "It's also perfect." She tilted her head back, kissed him softly. "Ask me again when you're not bleeding and I'm not exhausted. Make it romantic. Maybe with dessert, like you promised." "Deal." "And Salvo?" "See?" "The answer will be yes." His smile was like sunrise, slow, warm, transforming everything. "Bona." "Good." Outside, dawn was breaking over Manhattan. A new day, a new beginning. And somewhere in the city, in a restaurant that would open in a few hours, a wine cellar held the ghost of a spilled Barolo and the memory of 5 words in Sicilian that had changed 2 lives forever. "Non è vero. È falso. It's not true. It's fake." Except the love between a crime boss and a waitress? That was the realest thing either of them had ever known, and that was worth protecting, no matter what came next. Sabrina fell asleep listening to Salvo's heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. And for the first time in 5 years, she dreamed of her mother not with grief, but with gratitude. "I found the truth, Mama. And I found something else too. Something worth fighting for. I hope you'd approve." Somewhere in the darkness, she imagined her mother smiling and whispering back, "I always knew you were brave enough, sweetheart. Now go live the life I didn't get to finish." Sabrina intended to do exactly that, starting tomorrow. Tonight, she just held on to the man who'd helped her find her way out of the dark, and that was enough. 6 weeks later. The headline in the New York Times business section read, "Romano International Consulting launches with focus on cultural risk assessment." The Wall Street Journal was more direct. "Former crime family pivots to legitimate business, hires linguistic expert as partner." New York Magazine went for the gossip angle. The waitress and the mob boss, how a spilled glass of wine changed Manhattan's power structure. Sabrina ignored them all. She had better things to do than read about herself in the third person, like standing in Salvo's penthouse office, their penthouse office now, reviewing contracts for their first 3 clients, a shipping company concerned about cultural misunderstandings in their Asian operations, a law firm needing expert translation for a high-stakes international trial, a museum seeking authentication of recently acquired manuscripts, legitimate work, clean money, the kind of business that wouldn't get anyone killed, mostly. "You're thinking too loud again," Salvo said from where he stood at the windows, his shoulder fully healed, his suit immaculate, his presence still magnetic enough to make her pulse stutter. "I'm reviewing contracts. That requires thinking. That requires you making that face where you're about to find a problem I missed." "You didn't miss anything. These are solid." She set down the papers, walked to where he stood overlooking the Hudson. 3 major contracts in our first month. Not bad for a reformed crime organization. Reformed is a strong word. Reforming, then. She leaned against him, felt his arm come around her waist automatically. You've cut ties with everyone who wouldn't transition to legal business. You've divested from anything that couldn't withstand federal scrutiny. You're paying taxes, Salvo. Actual taxes. The ultimate sign of legitimacy. Or insanity. One of the two. He smiled, pressed a kiss to her temple. I got a call from the university this morning. Sabrina straightened, her heart skipping. And? They've approved the scholarship fund. Full ride, tuition, housing, stipend for living expenses, for students pursuing degrees in obscure languages, cultural studies, or investigative journalism. His voice was quiet, proud. They're calling it the Maria Fisher Memorial Scholarship for Cultural Preservation. Sabrina's throat tightened. 6 weeks ago, when Salvo had proposed the partnership, full equity in the new firm, equal authority, a genuine chance to build something meaningful, she'd had one condition. I want to establish a scholarship, she'd said, sitting across from him in the war room where they'd decoded Marco's message, in my mother's name, for students like me, brilliant, ambitious, drowning in debt, students who shouldn't have to choose between their education and their survival, students who deserve better than spending their genius serving wine to people who see them as furniture. Salvo hadn't hesitated. How much do you need? 5 million? Endowed. Enough to fund 10 students per year, indefinitely. Done. What else? She'd stared at him. That's $5 million, Salvo. You're not even going to negotiate? Why would I negotiate? It's a perfect idea. He'd leaned forward, his intensity focused entirely on her. Your mother died searching for truth. This ensures her death meant something, that her legacy lives on through students who'll keep asking hard questions, who'll keep demanding answers from powerful people who want to stay hidden. You realize you're funding people who might investigate you someday, she'd pointed out. Good. Keeps me honest. His smile had been sharp but genuine. Besides, I have you. If I start slipping back into darkness, you'll call me on it. Damn right I will. Now, 6 weeks later, the scholarship was real, approved, funded. The first cohort of students would be selected by next fall. 10 brilliant minds per year, freed from the crushing weight of debt. 10 people who could pursue truth without having to serve it on a silver platter to people who'd never see their worth. My mother would have loved this, Sabrina said quietly, blinking back tears. She would have been proud of you. Salvo turned her in his arms, cupped her face gently. Sabrina Fisher, partner in a multi-million-dollar consulting firm, architect of social change, the woman who made a crime boss go legitimate. I prefer the woman who threatened you in Sicilian until you saw reason. That, too. He kissed her softly. Have I mentioned that I love you? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry. Ti amo, Sabrina mia. His voice dropped to that intimate tone that still made her knees weak. Tamu makarika mi canciasti a vita, makarika mi facisti veniri vuglia desiri megiudihiddu ca era ume patri. I love you, my Sabrina. I love you even though you changed my life. Even though you made me want to be better than my father was. Your Sicilian is getting better, she said, blinking back tears. I'm a good teacher. The best. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Which brings me to something I've been meaning to ask. Sabrina's heart stopped. Salvo, you told me to ask again when I wasn't bleeding and you weren't exhausted, to make it romantic. He opened the box, revealing a ring that was somehow both simple and stunning, a single diamond, elegant and timeless. So here I am, not bleeding, reasonably rested, with dessert on the way. I had Luca order from that place you like. You're bribing me with tiramisu. Is it working? Absolutely. He smiled, then his expression turned serious. Sabrina Fisher, you saved my life. You saved my soul. You saw something worth redeeming in a man who'd spent his whole life being told he was nothing but his father's son. He took her hand. Marry me. Be my partner in business and in life. Help me build something that matters. Something clean, something your mother would have approved of. That's a much better proposal than the hospital version. I've had time to practice. And the answer is still yes. She laughed through tears as he slid the ring onto her finger. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your partner. Yes to all of it. He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, the intercom buzzed. Capo? Luca's voice crackled through. The tiramisu is here. Also, your 3 o'clock appointment arrived early. Tell them 5 minutes, Salvo replied, not taking his eyes off Sabrina. Understood. Sabrina looked at her ring, then at Salvo, then at the city spreading out below them. We're really doing this. Building a legitimate business, making actual positive change, getting married. Having that romantic dinner I promised you 6 weeks ago. You're very focused on the dinner. I'm very focused on keeping my promises to you. He laced their fingers together, the ring catching the afternoon light. Every single one. Even the one about dessert? Especially that one. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, a spilled glass of wine, a language that shouldn't have been understood, a collision of worlds that should never have mixed. I have one more condition, Sabrina said. Of course you do. When we get married, I want it in Sicily. In your grandmother's village, the one where the dialect comes from. Salvo's expression softened with something that looked like wonder. You want to marry me in the place my family came from? I want to honor where you came from while building where we're going. She squeezed his hand. Your grandmother survived fascism and war and immigration. She raised a son who built an empire. That empire had darkness, yes, but it also had strength and resilience and the will to survive. I want to acknowledge that. Honor it, while we transform it into something better. You're remarkable. I'm practical and sentimental. It's a confusing combination. It's perfect. He pulled her close. Sicily it is, my grandmother's village. We'll say our vows in Sicilian, the real dialect, not the tourist version. Obviously. I didn't learn it just to insult crime bosses. You learned it to marry one. Much better use. Reformed crime boss. Reforming, he corrected with a smile. The intercom buzzed again. Capo, they're getting impatient. Let them wait. But Salvo stepped back, straightened his tie, shifted into business mode with practiced ease. Ready to go terrify some corporate executives with your brilliance? Always. They walked toward the conference room together, partners in every sense of the word, equal, trusted, building something that neither of them could have built alone. Behind them, the Manhattan skyline glittered in afternoon sun. Ahead of them, a future that looked nothing like what either had planned, but everything like what they needed. Sabrina paused at the conference room door, looked back at the view one more time. She'd come to this city drowning in debt, searching for answers about her mother, invisible to everyone who mattered. Now she stood at the center of a new empire, one built on truth and language, and the radical idea that power could be used for something other than violence. Sabrina? Salvo's voice pulled her back. Coming. She turned to him, smiled. Let's go change the world. One mistranslation at a time? One truth at a time. They walked into the conference room together, and if the executives waiting inside were surprised to see the infamous Salvo Romano partnered with a woman who looked like she should be teaching graduate seminars instead of running a consulting empire, well, they'd learn. They'd all learn that the most dangerous weapon in any negotiation wasn't violence or money or connections. It was truth. Spoken in a language they assumed you didn't know, by someone they assumed didn't matter. Sabrina Fisher had spent 2 years being invisible. Now she was unforgettable. And the crime boss who'd once insulted her in Sicilian? He was the man who'd spend the rest of his life making sure she never had to be invisible again. Epilogue 1 year later. The wedding took place in a small church in the hills above Palermo, surrounded by vineyards and olive groves and the ghosts of 100 generations of Romanos who'd survived everything history threw at them. The ceremony was in Sicilian, the real dialect, ancient and beautiful. Sabrina spoke her vows without notes, her pronunciation perfect, her words making the elderly villagers cry with joy that someone so young still honored the old language. Salvo's vows were simpler. Tamu oggi, tamu domani, tamerò sempre. I love you today. I love you tomorrow. I'll love you always. When they kissed, the church erupted in applause. When they walked out into the Sicilian sunshine, rice and flower petals raining down, they weren't a crime boss and a waitress anymore. They were partners, equals, builders of something new. That night, at the reception in a villa overlooking the sea, Salvo pulled Sabrina onto the terrace away from the celebration. "Happy?" he asked, deliriously. She leaned into him, watched the sun set over the Mediterranean. "Your grandmother would have approved. She would have loved you, possibly more than she loved me. That's because I'm more lovable. Can't argue with that." They stood in comfortable silence, the sound of celebration drifting from inside, laughter, music, the clinking of glasses in toast after toast. "The first scholarship recipients start next month," Sabrina said quietly. 10 students, 10 brilliant minds who get to pursue truth without drowning in debt. Your mother's legacy. Our legacy. She looked up at him. "We built this together. The clean business, the scholarship, this future, all of it. You built it. I just provided the funding. You provided the courage to change. That's harder than money." Salvo pulled her close, pressed a kiss to her hair. "Grazie, Sabrina, p tutti così." Thank you, Sabrina, for everything. Thank you for listening when I spoke, for seeing me when everyone else looked through me. She smiled. For ruining my life in the best possible way. You ruined mine first. That Barolo cost $800. Best $800 you ever spent. Without question. Inside, someone called for the bride and groom. The celebration was waiting. The future was waiting. But for one more moment, they stood together on a terrace in Sicily, 2 people who'd found each other through chaos and choice and a language that connected them across centuries. "Ready to go back?" Salvo asked. "Ready to start our life?" Sabrina countered. "Sempre. Always." They walked back into the celebration hand in hand, into a future they'd built together, into a legacy that honored the past while creating something entirely new. And somewhere in the warm Sicilian night, if you listened carefully, you could almost hear the ghost of an old woman laughing with approval. Because her grandson had finally found someone worthy of the family name, someone who saw the man, not the empire, someone brave enough to speak truth to power, in the language of his grandmother's village, in the only words that mattered, "Ti amo." I love you. And that was worth more than any empire.